Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll take a motion to reorder the agenda and bring up item 8F, Board of Education Government Budget. I want to make sure that Board of Education's here, so any questions you have for them, rather than having to sit through the entire meeting. Okay, so I'll take a motion to reorder the agenda, bring that up currently. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, so we'll deal with the Board of Education. Any questions you guys have for them? Comments? Do you guys have any additional information for us?
I sent you that.
Yeah, I passed everything you sent out to the board. Yes.
That's what you asked for.
Yes. Yep, go
I have
ahead.
a question, because I know you guys are asking for a 8.77% increase, which is 907,000, right? So my question is, for a town of this small, why is it we need a superintendent, principal, and assistant principal all together? Because that's a large amount of money we're paying out for.
Well, we have a part-time superintendent, to .4. We have a full-time principal, and the last 5 or 6 years proved to us that having a principal didn't work. We needed an AP. So we got an AP 2 years ago, assistant principal. Just too much stuff going on, too many meetings, too many issues.
And also, please remember that this year, special ed is 100% in this budget. Mm-hmm. Okay? They netted it out, so there's $450,000 in revenue in the revenue side of the budget coming back.
We hope.
Yeah, we're going to get something, and hopefully it'll be that number.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So even though it was an 8 point whatever, it's not really totally that amount.
Assuming that comes back to us, what would that end up being percentage-wise of an increase?
I have to figure it out, I'm not sure.
Okay.
It'd be 450 off whatever they get, so that's about almost half. So it'd be a 4.9 or something like that.
That's not right.
No, I'm not right.
That's not right.
Okay.
So 8.77 is an increase of what our last year's budget was, plus the excess cost from last year
Okay.
to this year.
All right. So you factored that in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So what's the going cost of a superintendent in Connecticut? So for part-time, we're paying
So the average cost of a
96,000.
superintendent in Connecticut is $195,000. Ours makes 96. So, and this is her last year, next year's her last year, so we'll be looking for another one. Yeah.
Any
She
other
didn't take a
questions?
raise.
What's that?
She didn't take a raise next year.
Are there any line items
We
that
had
you guys
problems
are
with
seeing
thing
that are higher than budget?
You know,
that are expected
Valentino
to
and
exceed
Sally
the
after them, and
Well, that's why there's.
Hang on
that's why
one
the-
second.
That's why the Board of Ed has an extra $10,000 in there, because of the superintendent search for next year.
All right. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Who's that?
I was just going to ask, are there any line items or expenses that you guys are seeing this year that are a little bit higher than your budget and are expected to exceed the current approved budget?
Line items that for this year's budget that you expect to exceed your current budget.
Oh, absolutely. Special ed, transportation, legal.
For the current year.
Yeah, special ed, transportation, and legal.
Health insurance.
Health insurance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys know the specific causes, reasons as to why they're higher than budget, or
Sure.
any insight on that?
In the FY In the FY 24-25 budget, we budgeted for 21 high school student outplacements. We actually have, right now, 31. And the minimum cost for an outplacement in a high school, if it's a resource, is, what, 26K, right?
That's minimum.
Minimum, 26K.
That's resource.
Okay. And have they communicated any future increases in that rate?
Do you know if there's any future increases in that rate?
In the
Rate of what?
rate of
The outplacement services?
For high schools?
Oh,
it goes up exponentially every year.
every year, so.
Yeah, every year it goes up. Exactly what that percentage will be, I don't think they're sure.
Well, they tell us it'd be, like, for
Yeah.
this budget, we knew what their program costs
Yeah.
were. We
So,
budgeted those.
so you factored in any increases for this current budget they're asking for?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry for all the questions. Is there any way that we could work with some of these high schools and maybe lock in a rate, even if it's a little bit higher in year one, maybe by year 3, 4, or 5, there's some savings there, or is that not possible?
No, it's not possible.
No, Jonathan.
They got their own.
Because they're individual programs, right? It's IEP.
Yeah. He said that it's because they're individual programs, so each student has an IEP, which is an independent education plan. And that what the services that student needs dictates the cost.
Right.
Some students might only
Understood.
be in it for a year
Yeah.
or
Okay,
2
thank
years
you.
or their entire educational career.
Okay.
I don't know.
Anybody else?
Yeah, is the cost for insurance, is that solid now, or the insurance will be finalized later in?
Well, I did speak with Sonia Kaminsky a couple times.
Brown.
Brown, sorry. She's the boss, so to speak, and she said it could go slightly down, and she would notify us if it did.
Okay.
And I haven't heard from her. We talked a couple times, but it's going to be very slight, she said, if it goes down.
Okay.
That 8.23 we got in February, that was a lot of focus.
Yeah, I know in the past they didn't finalize the,
Yeah,
until maybe towards spring.
yeah.
Do you have any teachers up for retirement this year?
We haven't been told.
Any eligible for retirement this year?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there,
One or
yeah,
two?
there's one or two eligible. I don't know if they will take it.
Yeah. Okay.
So you guys have a teacher union, correct?
Correct.
Now, is any other staff under any kind of a union?
Excuse me?
Is any other staff, janitorial, anything like
Sure,
that? under
they're
a
in
union?
UI.
So my question is, I know you guys negotiate contracts with the unions, and it's pretty much you guys agree to a price, and then you guys come up and say, well, we agreed to this price, we have to have this budget money. So why is the Board of Finance not included in these budget talks or these contract costs?
I am invited to
Wayne
them.
can.
Okay.
Yes. It was late this year. I didn't make the first one or two, but I was in for the last one.
So our LEA, we negotiated the LEA this year, and we went to mediation. You know what that means?
Yes.
Oh,
So the CEA, the Connecticut Educational Association, brought 2 negotiators with them to the first meeting, and it went downhill from there. So they had a goal, and I think it was driven by the state CEA, and they weren't going to budge until we got to that mark. And we actually came in at 12.04 over 3 years, which was higher than we wanted to go, but the state average was 13.7 over 3 years. So according to our negotiator, we did better than most.
The state kind of backs the teachers union pretty much.
Big time.
Well, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what they said, if you go to arbitration, what happens?
So arbitration, the next step above mediation is arbitration, and that costs 50 to 70,000.
$60,000.
Yeah, 50 to 70,000, and it's split between the union and the administration. So you walk kind of a fine line, and you never know who's going to win, right? So the arbitrator is going to come in, he's going to look at both sides and say, give them what they want, or not.
So they pretty much use that as a scare tactic to push you guys to get what they want, pretty much. 'Cause
Yeah, once you get to mediation, it's kind of game over, right? So mediation, they bring in lawyers on both sides, and they talk to both parties, and you don't leave the room until you work out a deal. So that was the deal. We have a pretty sharp mediator too. She does a lot of it. And so we did all right considering the year.
Did you see what we're compared to other schools, local schools? Are they looking at a 70% increase too?
So I know Ledger is 6, right? 5.98. We looked at some other schools. There's a couple that
Our
are
side, like Canterbury, Voluntown.
Canterbury's up there. There's a couple schools that are around 3. I don't know how they're doing it. But
Have you guys reached out to their superintendents or anything?
what's that?
Have you, like, as you as the board of the chairman of the board of ed, have you reached out to their board of ed chair and asked them, like, indulge in, like, hey, how are you guys doing this without increasing? Like,
No.
working with, I mean,
I've got some.
that'd be a great idea to find out what they're doing to, it's not, you know, not
Well, they
increasing
might have
budget.
less special needs kids.
Could it,
That's a
yeah,
big part.
or they could have had more significant increases, like they've been down very low the last 2-3 years, so they could have had been 4% or something more reasonable over the course of other years, so they were closer to where they needed to be, but that's a guess, you know, but.
Did you want to know these percentages, Rich?
Yes, please,
I
if you have some.
Yeah, some said I could use their name, and some said I couldn't use.
Yeah, that's
their name.
fine.
Is that okay?
No, yeah, oh, yeah, that's, no
Preston
need
did
at all.
say I could use Preston. They're right now at 6.3.
Preston?
Yeah, Voluntown is long, he said I could say Voluntown, rural 2.93. I'm gonna give you a couple that are higher, but I'm not really supposed to give a name.
That's fine.
So 6.66 and 7% plus. And they never, he's a great guy, but he didn't give you the plus.
That's not so.
No, no.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
It's just a town.
There is one you mentioned, I just want to be totally transparent, 2.24. I can't give you the name,
Okay.
but you did mention
Yeah,
it.
but you don't know, they may not have a bus contract this year, so.
Oh, yeah, there's,
Things
oh,
like
is that
that.
the question? Yes, some did not.
Yeah.
Special ed, I know from all of them, is a driver.
Yeah.
It's a driver.
Oh, it has been.
But it's getting worse.
How much did we raise the mill rate last year?
2 mils.
And with
Oh,
the Board of Ed and the town budget, the way it's now, we're looking at a little over 2 mil increase.
2.5.
2.5. That's a big hit on the town.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of years ago, before last year, we just raised the mill rate again on that time.
Was a mil.
Yeah. So it's a fire department. Well, also the assessment of homes went up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think.
We got some work to do on this budget.
I think, yeah, we need to indulge and see where we
Yes.
cut some fat, because that's a big increase for the town. That's a heavy hitter for the town. And I know you guys are doing the best you can. I just think we need to all put our heads together and see what we can do.
Any other questions for the Board of Ed on their budget?
So with the MERS, which I believe is like a pension system,
Yes.
there's 3 different line items. The total is about 26,000 or something like that. I was just wondering if we're still running pension systems, if that's baked into the union contracts, because I also see here that there's 403B retirement contributions.
So we have,
Are we doing one? Are we doing both? Are we doing one system for more tenured employees and the 403B for newer teachers?
I think it depends on the employee and whether they're part of the teachers union.
it's not the
no.
employee, it's the position. So the business manager's contract has MERS in it. The
Nurse.
school nurse contract has MERS in it.
Director of Building.
Director of Building Grounds has MERS, and
Someone else.
there's one more.
Oh, administrative system,
Yeah.
yeah. And those are the 4.
There's 4 MERS. I was against it from the beginning, but it is what it is, and it's controlled by the state. They tell us what we have to pay. And it's high every year.
So, moving forward, if you're looking for a new superintendent next year, would it be a good idea to try to get with another community the size of Lisbon that has a part-time superintendent and see if you guys can work out to share the cost of a superintendent, maybe even save a little bit of money that way? So they're paying almost $100,000 for a superintendent, and if they're paying $100,000, maybe a superintendent will say, okay, I'll do both towns, and maybe each town might only have to pay $70,000 or something, you know?
Well,
It's something to think about.
that's gonna be a big discussion at the board this year because, you know, we have a part-time superintendent that works probably 65, 70 hours a week.
Well,
But I
So-
choose to.
She chooses to do that, but she does work. And I don't know if we're gonna be able to find another part-time superintendent that's gonna put in those kind of hours. And I don't know if you could possibly share a superintendent with another school.
Not that many hours.
You're still gonna pay your share of 2 days at that price.
Sure.
I mean, most of the superintendents will go part-time because they retired and they just wanted a little extra income. That's the way it was the last two we've hired. And that's the way it is up in Ballintown and I think Canterbury too.
Superintendent in Griswold, just to give you a perspective, makes $289
He's
Full-time.
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 Just for all three schools or just the
He's all
elementary
three.
schools? Huh?
He's all three.
All three?
Yeah.
What are you talking, 800 kids now between all three?
Yeah, I would say a little higher.
1,100.
1,100?
I think so. I mean, I could check. if you-
No, it's not important. It's quite a few. Okay.
Okay, any other questions for the Board of Ed? Okay, hearing none, we'll go back to the agenda.
Thank you.
No problem. Is King and King here? Okay. I will entertain a motion to bring item 8A, the audit presentation, to the current part of the agenda.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. You're up.
So I don't know if you want me to somehow stand over there, if you want to just swipe that, whatever's easier, but.
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with.
I can
Maybe like Vanna White or something.
whatever is going to be easier.
Yeah, but I'd rather see you have what you need.
Yeah. So, so my name is Marshall Dean. I'm the audit lead for Town of Lisbon. Christopher King is our partner. We actually had kind of double booked tonight, so he had to do another town and split duties. So I'm here to present. I presented last year as well. So just kind of we'll go through. We built a presentation to kind of highlight just some of the audit areas for the financial statements. There's 3 sets of financial statements and a agreed upon procedures that happen with the Board of Ed. And I'll kind of go through a little bit of that information as well as just kind of present the audit with our presentation. So
Copy this first, didn't
to kind of start, we just want to kind of give from our perspective of how our year goes. We had implemented some brand new software for our engagements. Every year we have different risk factors and we have different controls and procedures that we do on our own. But we now implemented a newer set of softwares that kind of lead into better control, risk procedures, and it gives us more ability to make things more efficient and kind of go from there. But then also, because it was a new year for that, it kind of dragged our year on a little bit as well. Some of the new GASB standards and emphases that have come through for this fiscal year for 23-24 was estimates. They really wanted us to kind of focus on management estimates. Some of the bigger ones for towns with depreciation, you guys don't really deal with that, but it is an estimate that you guys create. One that you will kind of deal with is the uncollectible property taxes. We typically go to your tax collector Before it was kind of just an estimate of a town, they might do a percentage. We kind of have been going with tax collectors and saying, what do you feel is appropriate? And that number has, swung from an estimate of 5,000 to maybe 30,000 or 50,000 to make the books feel more accurate, even though they're based on an estimate. There has been new standards for leases, right-of-use leases, software leases. The next GASB standard that's going to be coming out effective next year is compensated absences calculation. And those are things we'll work with the town and the Board of Ed to calculate those based on the new standards. But from our side, this is every year it's more and more and more. So just kind of not like a sad story, but more for us to deal with every year. So just kind of give a little perspective from our side. And then for the audit itself, the financial audit contains the management discussion analysis, which is the highest level. It's summarized. It's from you guys, from management, the Board of Finance. It's just very high level summary of the town and kind of just bullet points, maybe some of the highlights of the year. Next is your actual financial statements. There's 3 sets of them. There is government-wide, which includes your fixed assets, your loans, your GAAP basis or fund balance that is modified accrual. And the third is your budgetary basis, which most of your boards, everybody kind of deals with and knows how to operate with. Every year, every town typically will have a state single audit, but not every year you'll have a federal. You did have a federal, but it's if you have over 750,000 of expended federal grants. And then the agreed upon procedures, you guys might not deal with it or the town, but there is testing done based from the state of Connecticut, Department of Education. They have to submit an annual EFS upload of their trial balance and information. They also require us to review that process and make sure the information that goes in is accurate to our standards. So that is another part of our auditing procedures that may not be seen, but is done by us. So getting into the financial statements, the financial audit, so page 12 and 13, that is your government-wide financials. Those, like I said, include your fixed assets, your large loans, and it's really the compressed, summarized of all your funds of the town. There is the business type activities. Those would be your WPCA or enterprise funds. And that's the highest level summarized. Next is your fund basis financial statements, page 14 through and 16. Your general fund, fund balance unassigned for this year was about 4.6 million. That is about 31% of your budgeted expenditures and other financing uses. Average for the state, typically they look for is about 3 months or 16 to 17%. So that is a healthy fund balance at this time. Capital non-recurring fund balance, it's 6.3 million. That is your large capital projects. The one that's massively going on right now is the firehouse, which still contains about 3 million of that fund balance to be used. But I believe you spent like 6 million in the year for that, so that is a very large ongoing project. The WPCA has a net loss of 43,000, but that does include depreciation on those net assets that they have. So without that, they are, slightly running a percent. If the assets were all depreciated, they would be in a healthy position year over year. But the good news is for them, they have been increased revenues year over year, and their expenses have kind of been normalized. They haven't been anything crazy. I did hear from Holly that they did have a large event, so that the fund balance will definitely have its own thing that happens with that. So, but we'll see that next year. Next would be your financial notes, note disclosures, your capital assets and long-term liabilities. The significant activity with capital assets was the firehouse, and your long-term liabilities, your bonds, large payments of $479,000 for the 2024 fiscal year. And there is a breakout of the future payments as well on those pages. But they usually stay pretty consistent. This is a 3-year trend analysis of your fund balance for the general fund. You can see every year it has been slowly increasing. A lot of that is due to a healthy interest rate that has been coming through for a lot of towns, but that's never predictable, so that's a good thing. And then the efforts of lower expenses based on the budget has come through as well, and property tax collections. The other areas assigned is your portion related to your budget for next year's anticipated use of fund balance, and your restricted is your town clerk fund balances for them. Continuing on to the other highlights, continuing in the notes, page 35 is your detailed breakdown of the fund balances, which that chart broke down your general fund, but the other funds mostly are just restricted funds. These two notes, we throw them in there just to kind of give you an idea, but they're your teacher's retirement plans and the OPEB related to teacher retirement. The liability associated with both of them, the teacher retirement, about $12.5 million, the OPEB, about $1.1 million. The state contributes on behalf of the towns. There was word like 4 years ago, but there's been no word since then. They were going to request towns, or think about requesting towns to contribute into helping with that. I don't think that's going anywhere. I don't think that ever went anywhere. So they have contributed on your behalf $1.2 million into the teacher's retirement and $16,000 that's health benefits for the OPEB. But if they, gives you an idea, if they ask for 10% help, that's something that would be contributed into now your budget and expenditures. But like I said, it's something we like to just throw in there, but it's not. We don't think it's going to go anywhere. We haven't heard any discussion through the state. So next is your budgetary statements, the detail behind them, page 49 to 56. You ended the year with about $470,000 in revenues or net income from your budget related to taxes and investment income coming in very strong, and expenditures coming under $181,000. So healthy budget, but yet again, it's interest income. I think it was like $300,000 over your budgeted amount. That can swing wildly, so you just kind of have to play with that number and see what's healthy for the town for budgeting. Page 64. This is your taxes receivable for property taxes. Your ending balance $213,000. The current levy for the year, that's about 1.9%. Benchmark for most towns are 2 to 8%. So you guys are on a healthy collection rate for your current property taxes. If it ever became significant, we would do additional testing into that just to see what's going on. But since COVID, that number has now been on the very healthy end of benchmarks for towns because people were paying their taxes at that time. So you guys are on that healthy end of the benchmark. So your state and federal single audits, these are the compliance audits for state and federal. Page 6 is your schedule of expenditures related to your financial assistance. You received about 4.6 that you spent. 3.1 is related to the education cost sharing and excess costs related to the school. Page 9 and after that, those are findings related to it can be related to the financial audit, or it can be related to the state. For this finding here is the town. It's the BOE. It's a continuation from the prior year. When we went through auditing, just a lot of immaterial items not being reconciled or handled appropriately, though they may not be they're immaterial to our risk or our audit. We hit 5 areas. It was basic CAF, student activities, the actual DOE, a lot of their funds, childcare, just things that need to be wrapped up, cleaned up with them, and it just we continue to see it into 24. So we just want them to wrap it up, and that they have additional help up there. So I hope that pushes them into this new fiscal year with better standing on that. For the federal single audit, H6, you received or expended 1.2 million. 570 of that was ARPA funds, which are not continuous. Those will eventually dry up after this fiscal year, I believe, or by December you had to allocate everything. So once those are gone, you guys probably will fall under a federal audit unless a large project comes up. But as of this year, you had a federal audit. With that, ARPA, we did have to test. There was 2 federal compliance related findings. One, every town is getting. There was a requirement that every town had to check with sam.gov to make sure any vendor over 25,000 had been registered with sam.gov to make sure they're not disbarred or suspended from any federal funding. You have to have a policy related to that in writing. No town was either aware of it, didn't write a policy properly, or some towns have legal counsel helping them and they weren't aware. So that's just one of their compliance requirements. A lot of towns have this finding. We ask that you put a policy in writing for it and make sure you're checking your vendors. It's typical for federal funding that you need to check your vendors to make sure there are not any issues with their federal standings. So the other one was the reporting requirement with federal for ARPA. That was not done, so that's just something that needs to be completed on time for them. And it says one general financial statement finding, so that DOE finding gets shown both on state and federal as significant findings, and the 2 federal or compliance related findings, they are also considered significant findings, but they're compliance as well. And then we issued our management letter with that. This is just to kind of bring to your attention. They are not issues that rise to significant deficiencies, but management should be aware of them. Reporting expenditures on schedule of expenditures of state's financial assistance. This comment has basically hit every single one of my towns because the state requires you to tell us as auditors what expenditures you have done in the fiscal year. A lot of towns, they kind of base it on when they report it to the state for their funding to get back, but the state requires you as a town to report to them the year that the expenditures happen. That gets difficult when there is large yearly 3-year projects. You might not get the grant award in the first year, but you've already expended funds. So this is our kind of communication to say, hey, the state is cracking down on this. They are getting harder on you guys as towns to make sure you are reporting expenditures in the proper fiscal years. They are asking us to basically hand you the page 6 of the state single audit or the federal and say, fill this in for us. That's actually a requirement from you guys, but we do it as it just makes sense for us to help you with it. But they are cracking down on that and wanting us to communicate more with you guys to make sure that is happening in the fiscal years that the expenditures are happening. BOE, there was some invoices when we went for testing that didn't have sign of approval on them. It happens time over time, labs, change in staffing, but we just want to make sure that that is taken care of going forward. Next is this was a repeat from last year, but it's the encumbrance policy. We just want a written formal policy. I talked to Wayne and he said you guys did handle that with the school to make sure that they weren't going over any certain time limit or 6 months or 3 months, whatever they want to put as a policy to make it in good standing, but it should have a written formal policy for that. And then verbal comments, these are comments that we don't put in the letter, but we keep for our records. Some towns ask us, hey, what did you find that wasn't in the audit or in our management letter? certificates of corrections within the assessor and the tax office. Those are changes within your grand list. We recommend if one person is entering them or recording them, that you have somebody supervise or not supervise, but review that change of correction, because worst case scenario, what if that person writes off their friend's house and no one reviewed it? You would never know, and that is your fund source for a town, is your revenues. So we recommend just having somebody do a review and sign off on those certificates, to make sure there is a good checks and balances for that. And then this is your statewide ranking from the municipal financial indicators. It's always set about 2 years back. Out of the 169 states, these are your categories for them. However you want to read this, your grant revenues, your total revenues, your property versus your overall revenues, tax collection rate, based on your standing and what these actually represent to you guys. I gave a link as well so you can review any other the categories that they compare to, but a lot of these, they're decently in good standing compared to the other towns. So
Is a low ranking good or bad?
it depends on what you
Measure it, yeah. You
Yeah.
can't tell.
Yeah, it can go either way. If you want to be number one or last, I mean, if you don't want to be the highest,
Right, so intergovernmental revenues were on the low end, the bad end.
you have more governmental revenues than your total revenues. Yeah, I would say that's in a sense on the bad end. You guys use more grants over collections. I mean, that's not.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe it's on the good end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, as
Okay.
long as the grants stay coming in.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Because that can be a determination if you guys were in bad standing for your fund balance. If your intergovernmental revenues are high, that is one of their tiered rankings to basically put you on the bad list.
Oh, okay.
So,
So-
it can be good or bad. If you guys are really good at getting grants, that number could be high.
Right.
That doesn't indicate specifically a bad or good thing. And then, property taxes versus total revenues, that kind of can give you, you're on the low end, which is a good thing. You're not overtaxing compared to all your other revenues within the town at that time. But there's the link. You could actually see any other indicators that
Okay.
may have any interest. So, and then this is our information. Christopher King, our partner, and me. So if you have any other questions or communications you want to do, that's our information. If you guys have any questions for the audit, I'm here for you and can help out.
Okay, anybody have any questions? None?
No. Well, I mean, haven't really gone through it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just basically got it. How come this audit is so late? Before
Well-
we used to get it, we used to get at least a preview in November.
I mean, I can base it off of this year. We didn't come out here until late. If you want to base it on OPM standards, they want you guys to be finished as a town, both BOE and town, by August, to have it completed audit by December. We didn't come out to the town, I think, until November. So, and there was still, Eric had to come out and help, and I think in October, because he didn't come out in time. And then for us as auditors, we do multiple towns. So once you're late for me, I can't push you ahead of other clients that are already there. So it's a mixture of both. If we can move the finishing of your records up higher and get us out here earlier and in good shape, we can move along. As you can see too, there was a lot of difficulties with the findings. They're not material and concerning, but they do take additional time for us to complete things. So the grants for reporting periods, we did actually go through and find some old grant revenues that were sitting on your books related to old grants. I mean, that took some of my day trying to find that, but it released some of those revenues. The school, there was a lot of areas that they needed help with. I'm hoping they have pushed through that, but it's kind of, if you guys can be ready and started on time, I can be out here earlier and complete earlier. I know for even before us, filing for the audit has never been before December for a long time. maybe before us as a practice. So they maybe prior auditors were able to get you a November draft, but filing wise, I know it hasn't been before December in a while, and there has been difficulties. It's not, and to put it this way, you are you're fourth out of my 8 audit clients to be done right now. I'm actually going out for interim tomorrow for a client. So towns are not, they're just having a lot of difficulties. There's more standards, there's just more time that it requires for us. So it's both sides. I would say our side, there's more work than auditors, so we are trying our best. But on the other side, if you want to go by OPM practice, you guys need to be ready by August for us to have a December audit completed based on their standards. So it's a little bit of both. But yeah, if you guys are in really good shape and we're out here early, we'll try our best to get it done by December. We also have a school district. I have a town without a school district. We get them done by November, but they don't have school districts. So it's how much work is involved in everything and findings and just a little bit of everything going on. So.
Okay, if you have difficulties or anything like that, could you let Wayne know? Because he might be able to move some.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we emailed them a few times throughout the year with it. So a lot of them, like I said, this specific year, the prior couple of years, there was things that did delay us. This year, I wouldn't say it was 100% delaying. It wasn't smooth. So if we do find difficulties, we do usually put a communication letter which would state difficulties. Chris was wondering if we should do that. This year, I didn't feel the BOE was a problem per se. It's just their books are still needing help. And they do have a consultant, I believe, up there helping them going into this year. So maybe next year will be a better outlook. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just I don't know if you know off the top of your head. So for the capital and non-reoccurring, we have for the ending year we had $388,000 in current revenues for undesignated. And do you remember what that is from? Yeah, I would imagine some of it's from the money we transferred into the CNR, but that's only $110,000.
So I believe you guys have the capital schedule in the back of the audit.
Yeah, the very last
Yeah,
page.
so if you're asking what makes up that unassigned portion, it probably is transfers going in that weren't designated to an area.
Okay.
I don't specifically know what breaks up that number.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's something management or whoever is tracking the CNR should know, because in a best case scenario, all CNR funds should be designated to a project. They really shouldn't be undesignated. Mm-hmm. That word should really be treated as just capital projects, general, if you want to.
Right.
So to give you a specific, what is that number? It's got to be transfers that went in that didn't have a project designation.
Yeah, I know we have a balance each year. I was just wondering why there's $308,000 more this
fiscal year.
Yeah. This is the very last page. I did a 388.
I think one part of it is related to revenues that were released. I'm not sure if it was capital projects. Yes, capital projects. There was revenues from a grant that was not released properly.
Okay.
So that I think got pushed into that fund because they were the ones that originally paid for it.
Okay.
So it might have been a designated project at one time, paid by the CNR fund, but then had state funding that came and reimbursed it. So I do believe that CNR did have released of like 100 and something from that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one quick question from the Board of Ed. We wrote that encumbrance policy last year after the audit, and you asked for it, and they didn't provide it to you?
No. And I asked John if they had one, and I think Wayne was going to reach out to you guys to have it. If you do have a written policy in the minutes for it, please have somebody send that to me, and I can redact the findings of that.
All right, I'll get it done.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, any other questions on the audit? Jonathan?
I'll sit over here.
Okay. I will take a motion to accept the audit then.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we've only had a couple days to look at it.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So
if you
can
want
we
to
have
wait
more
and
time to
accept
look
it
at
in the next meeting, I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. Yeah, no, that's fine.
That way Ian can get his thing.
Yep. Yep. That's fine.
Yeah, so we, all we need, once you guys are all set, is the representation letter,
Mhm.
and we can file by the end of the month. So, I'm hoping your next meeting's before the end of the month.
Next week,
Yeah, we have another
Okay.
one next week. I'll
Yep.
put the audit back on the agenda for next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah,
Okay.
once you guys are all set with it, just,
Mhm.
you can email me
I'll let you
and I'll
know.
get the representation letter and we'll file by the end of the month.
Yep. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move back to the regular part of the agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes for the February 19th regular meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? By Frank. Any corrections, omissions, additions? Hearing none, those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of the March 12th special meeting,
Make the motion.
made by and seconded by Frank. Any discussion, corrections, omissions? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Correspondence. I have a memo from the town planner that they're updating their master plan. And it's the future development, plan of future development. I sent that out to you guys, so if you had a chance to look at it. It is fairly interesting. There is a survey there I did take.
Is that P&Z?
Yeah,
Yeah, I did
yeah.
do the survey.
yeah, okay. Copy of the, that article that was sent out on the state funding. A letter from King & King on the audit. Basically, it's a notes to what he represented today on the management response, the Board of Education, invoice approvals, that type of stuff. And this is the backup for it. And we do have, that's correspondence. So in here. Okay, bills are in there also. So for other correspondence, I'll do under the chairman's report. Any questions on the correspondence? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to bills and actions thereon. We have a bill for the King & King Associates for the completion of the audit. Yes, this will be for the completion of 10,600.
So moved.
So moved. Second. Okay, Frank seconded. Comments, questions?
I think we should table that until we have a chance to review the audit,
That's fine?
until the next meeting, next
Yep,
week.
no, that's fine. Okay, we can put that back up. We don't need a motion for that. Back in here. Okay, move on to the monthly statements. Any questions, concerns on the monthly statements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the chairman's report. I had a lot of communication with King & King. Most of the conversations we had with them were late, very late, the last few days of February or through this month. And it was, a lot of it pertained to the Board of Ed. That was pretty much the bulk of it. There was one question that came up regarding the expenses or appropriations, additional appropriations. Okay, they were under the impression that we could only make one transfer up to 20,000 for the entire budget. Okay, an additional appropriation. We did get clarification from the town attorney, and they did agree that it can be that amount per budget item.
So it's 10,000 per budget?
20.
item? Oh.
20,000.
Right. Okay. That's without a town meeting. Anything above that has to go to a town meeting.
It's always been that.
Yeah, 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 they just
Okay.
And this had come up, this had
Nothing
come up a couple of years ago
Okay.
and was resolved, so not sure why it came back up again, but it did. That's pretty much all I have for my report. Public comment, any from the public wishing to comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Old business, the audit presentation we've done, firehouse update, moving along. They're hoping to get in by the end of April. Yeah. They did pull out the fire pump. Found some bad, I won't say a bad seal, but the seal had failed. They believe it failed because of the fact that the contractor did not put the proper venting in the tanks. Okay.
Is it in there now? The proper vending?
They were working on that.
They're working on it, but it is being resolved by the vending.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a 4-inch vent in each tank. There was a 4-inch or 6-inch. Or it was either 4 or 6-inch air vent in each tank, so when the pump pulled the water out of those tanks,
Yeah.
it could go down. There was, one was plumbed properly, the other 2 tanks were tied into one vent. And then also the vents were restricted. So there were like rubber cones put into them, so it brought it down from a 4-inch to a 1-inch opening. And the second one, with the double one, had a stone on top of it besides the restriction.
Better that the gasket went in the pump itself?
No, it was the gasket in the tank wall.
Yeah, I know, it's better than that, than the
Yes,
pump.
yes,
That
yes,
would have been a lot of money.
yeah, so.
That's also supposed to point the vent down so nothing
Yes,
Right.
blowing.
yeah, there should have been hooked.
What was it, straight up?
Yeah, straight up.
Amateur.
So
Um,
what are these things made of? Are they poly
Yeah.
tanks?
Oh, I don't know what the tanks are made of.
They gotta be followed.
Because if
There is
they're
poly or
pulling out of a
concrete.
tank without proper ventilation, you can collapse the tank.
Yeah.
Is there any chance they collapse the tank to the ground?
I'll have to find out. I will ask that
Can
question.
they go through the vent, like camera them and make sure?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, they should be able to
Have
do
a
that.
collapsed pipe or a tank to the ground.
No,
The
they
startup
should be
should
able
have
to do
been done without somebody going through and inspect and make sure everything's ready before you fire
Correct.
it up.
that. Yeah. So there's questions about how that and why they started it and pulled the test without verifying that everything was finished. So there is a lot of questions, so more to come on that one. Posting of the recorded minutes on the town website. YouTube, here we go. Okay, this is the last month that we had voted to have this report, but I would suggest that we just ask to have it continued. At some point, if we want to eliminate it, we can. But the current, let's see, make sure I'm right. Yeah. For 2/19/25, which is the most current one, I believe, there were 7 views, 5.6%, average of 4.41 minutes. Average about 17.6% of the meeting was viewed. Okay. I will ask Elaine to forward that out to you as part of the regular minutes also, so you have it for your records. Any questions on that? Okay. LER financials review. We didn't get any this month, but you were reviewing what had come in. Any questions on those?
On what?
LER.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Update on the annual report. It is in. I had sent last week the Board of Finance, because I had gotten the draft audit over to the to Elaine. For some reason, I sent her the entire audit without the Board of Ed instead of just the Board of Ed page. So I resent her that today. She did send me back the final for approval, which I did, so hopefully it went out to the printer today. If not, I'm sure it'll go out tomorrow. So hopefully we'll get that back by the public hearing. Okay. New business. We're still on general government budget and Board of Education budget. Okay. Any questions for the general education or the general budget? Yep, come on up. Make it easier to punch at you.
Well, when you throw stuff at you,
Yeah, but if we miss, it hits the spectator. Okay, any questions for the general budget? Tom?
I have one.
Yep, go ahead.
Hey, Tom, on the selectmen's budget, it must be the pay increases for all the positions for selectmen. What did you guys get, 3%?
we put in for 3%.
You put in for 3%.
We put in for 3%.
Okay, how come the bookkeeper wages was almost 11?
It's because you'll notice in the narrative, I put in for $1,000 per quarter because she is going far and above her duties by the union contract. She is managing all of our grants. She is tracking all of our grants. She is putting together the quarterly payments for all of our grants. So she is doing a lot of stuff that's far and above what her normal duties are.
Is that a full-time job?
It's 30 hours a week, yes.
Here, she
Yes.
worked from here?
Yes.
Which one is that? Which?
Line item 51114. Was there that big of an increase last year too, or you just made it up this year?
We put it in at 3% this year. We're going into contract negotiations. So
It's part of the union?
Yeah. That's
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah. So we gave everybody 3% across.
Yeah, okay, that's the only question I had.
Any other questions?
I was just
Yep.
wondering if there was places, it seems like there's some places where it's significantly increased and other places is minimal, and I didn't know if there was anything where we could trim anything to try to offset the Board of Ed.
Well, I think that's an unfair statement to say you're going to cut the general government budget to offset the Board of Education budget. One is more important than the other.
No, but it doesn't look like there's too much that can be changed in the Board of Ed budget.
And it came with us.
I'm just asking.
Yeah,
I'm just asking a question.
I'm preparing for you, or I've presented to you a budget that comes in at 2.68%.
I think it's great.
Over last year.
Mhm.
And that's my representation to you, that this is the funding that I need to be able to provide the goods and services to the residents for the next fiscal year.
So I would say, going back to the bookkeepers, so she's getting he or she's getting a 3% raise plus the extra $4,000 a year, correct?
Yes.
So I would say, I mean, a lot of us go above and beyond our jobs at our jobs. Now, $4,000 on top of it, plus your 3% increase, that's a good chunk of money. So I mean, if you start having people in your maintenance department, whatever, start going above and beyond, we can just start throwing $4,000 out to everybody. I mean, I think that could, that's going to get out to a lot of departments and people. I know we don't have a lot of people that work for the town, but I think 4,000 is a little excessive just for going above and beyond. I mean, that's.
We can agree to disagree on that. For all that she does that are not part of her job description, I don't find that to be a problem. And I don't want to single anybody out, but we actually have contracted services, somebody to assist the finance department in reconciling the books under contracted services. I mean, there are just some people that have to come in and help. I could always hire somebody to take over those extra duties that the bookkeeper does, but we're not going to get it for $4,000. And that was something that.
So who was doing that before the bookkeeper was tracking?
She's been doing it, but we have so many grants now that it's just become cumbersome. She spends more time doing that, or a lot more time doing that than she did before.
Does she follow up on the grants, or does she write the grants?
No, I write the grants.
You're writing the grants?
I write the grants, but she manages all the paperwork, manages all the funding, because a lot of our grants we get approval for the grant, but then we have to pay before we get the money. So
Yeah.
she's responsible for tracking all that.
Gotcha.
She's responsible for copying all that. She's responsible for providing me all of the information and she's responsible for doing the quarterly reports that we have to send. And then the final report that we send to get the grant payment.
Yeah, there's a lot of follow-up afterwards, yeah, yeah. Now, at one time, we did have a grant writer, if I remember, years ago, wasn't it 10%?
Well, grant writer is different, but we never had that many grants.
No, wait, no, there's a boatload of them out there now, and you're taking advantage of them, which is a good thing.
So how many grants a year are we getting compared to, say, 5 years ago?
Well, this year alone, we had a steep grant for a couple $100,000, a $500,000 urban action grant, a $700,000 urban action grant that's in the process now that she's tracking. She just finished the final report, I believe, for the request, but not a request because the $500,000 we got in advance, but we had to do quarterly reports to her and then to them, and then we had to send a final report to them showing what we spent our money on, the steep grant, and she just did, and I think we've gotten the final payment on LoCIT, or no?
Waiting on the last final small amount that was
Okay.
from the amount of help.
Right, okay.
You do have to follow up, there's no question about it with the way the state operates.
Well, it's not only following up, it's making sure that you're keeping proper records of what you're spending.
Yeah, there's a
your money
lot of
on.
bookkeeping involved.
You have to keep copies of the checks, and then you have to make sure that when you send everything, you've got the canceled checks to go along with the request, so it's a lot more cumbersome.
I don't mean to sound negative, but if the bookkeeper was doing this before, then the bookkeeper was not going above and beyond just the increase of a load, right? That's just the amount of grants have increased slightly.
They were doing that before, but there's just
Correct.
a lot more, there's a lot more now.
More detail.
And don't forget, she's also doing this for the bond for the fire department.
It would probably be more if we had to hire somebody else to do it.
Of course, you're not gonna get somebody to do all this.
Not for $4,000.
For $4,000.
Okay, anything else on the Board of Ed side?
Did the state trooper get a 3% raise, or does he get a raise through the state troopers union?
We don't, that's.
So who sends you the bill for his salary? The state of Connecticut, and that's who we pay, the state police?
Yeah.
Okay, so it could be anything, and we pay it.
Yeah,
Whether it's insurance
If you
or-
look at the worksheet you have,
Yeah.
I provided.
Yeah,
you what-
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we pay a percentage of his salary, including the increase, and a percentage of the expenses to run the office.
Okay, anything else? Okay. While we're on the budget, I did send you guys out a spreadsheet, just so you have a little understanding of it, is that you've got your fiscal year 24-25, which we're currently in. The first page is based on the current mill rate. If we left the mill rate as is, there would be a deficit of $1,192,000.
Where is that on page 2?
That's on page 2. The third line from the left, from the right.
Third column, yeah.
Okay. If we increase, it would take an increase to 28.04, and I'm gonna have to check that because it's still showing, oh, that's the debt service, I'm sorry. My correction, the deficit would be $1,159,371. If we increase the mill rate to 28.04, which is what it would take to balance the budget, would end up with a surplus of 58,833.
So what do you mean with balancing the budget, because that's 58,000 over zero?
Well, yeah, it's over, but,
What? No,
yeah, rounded. If
What is the
we,
current, what is the current one rate?
25.43.
Oh, okay, so that first column is the.
Yes.
Okay.
The very across the top gives you the historical mill rates.
Okay,
All right. The last three are the ones we're looking at.
gotcha.
And the last column, what I did was, if we ran the budget at a cap based on the state's cap of the 3.1, which would be 25.84 mils, which would give us a deficit of 968,000.
Yeah, so why'd you pick 25.4 again?
Because that's the, if I sent you guys out a sheet that said because we're over 25 mils, the maximum amount we can raise is either 2.5% or inflation, which is
That's right.
3.1%. Okay,
Right.
we can raise above that, but every dollar, if anything we raise above that, we stand to lose 50% of our grant.
Okay, good.
It's not a significant amount of money. The grant is 139,000. So if we lost half of it, it'd be roughly 70,000. Okay.
Okay.
That is not calculated in this. Okay. The other thing that is not calculated in this, because I have not gotten the information back, and it's not significant, is the revenue from like the town clerk, property revenues, from recording fees and gun permits, fishing licenses, all that kind of stuff. Okay, they're not going to be significant, but it will change it somewhat. So that's basically, where we stand. My gut feeling is we're going to come up somewhere in between. The biggest issue we've got that I'm looking at this is that last year our dollars generated per mill was 471,372. That went down to 466,744.
What
Okay.
line is that?
That's this.
Very, very
That's
top.
right under the mill rates.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm not sure why that's going out to 860, but I'll double check that. I think it's 466,744. And that was primarily due to a reduction. The state dictated how we can calculate the motor vehicles for taxes, and which resulted in a little over a $5 million increase in the grand list. Decrease.
Decrease?
Decrease.
Yeah, decrease, yeah.
Okay.
That's a lot for cars.
Yeah.
What did they do? Did they tell us the cars aren't worth as much?
Basically, yeah. Basically. So we did take a $5 million hit in the grant list. Fortunately, we did have some new building and increases in the grand list. So our net, actually, I'm sorry. That line, the second line under, is actually the grand list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next one down is the amount per mill. Okay. So last year was 470,000 per mill. Now we're down to 466,745. So I think we're going to end up somewhere in between. I did calculations over on the right section of the page. I did the current. Then I did if we decided on 27 mil, which would be a $1.5 million increase, it would be basically a 6.17% increase. And the various amounts per home, a $100,000 home will go $157 a year. A $400,000 home will go up to $628 a year additional.
So where do you get the rest of the money from? Out of the surplus, correct? That's the only place you can take it from.
Yes, but that creates a totally another problem.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Because you still gotta come up with 1.1 million, right?
We have to come up with 1.1 million, and we really cannot continue to fund the budget out of the surplus.
That's correct.
Okay.
So you're looking at a higher
Because
number.
all we're doing is putting off
Yeah,
the tax increase,
yeah,
okay?
but it's gotta be there.
Because if we were to fund this entire thing out of the surplus, which could, but I strongly recommend we don't, okay? Next year, we would be looking at that plus the increase.
Correct,
So now you're looking at a 4% $4 mil increase.
correct,
Okay?
correct.
We are taking, this figure's 200,000 out of the surplus to offset the initial payments for the firehouse bond. So it gets down to a more reasonable level. Okay. We did that last year, and that was the plan when we took out the bonding.
Going forward every year, or just last year and this year?
I think it was the first 4 to 5 years.
Okay, well,
And then
this will be the second year then.
Yes, this is the
Okay.
second year.
So
Okay.
we're not gonna have no help, really no help from the surplus then, or minimum. When you're talking at 2.5 million.
We do have room in the surplus to do a little bit.
What's a
but-
little bit?
I'm thinking another 200,000.
So 2 for that, 2 for the firehouse.
Yes,
That leaves you 900, that's gonna put you close to, that's gonna put you 2 mils.
yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
without cutting anything.
correct.
Yes.
Well, that's why you have the town meeting.
Yes.
Right.
Well, we have to make a recommendation.
You have to make a recommendation, but don't you usually make a recommendation after the town meeting?
No.
It
No.
varies, yeah.
Changed?
No, we varied it, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I prefer that we make a recommendation before the town meeting or before the public hearing.
the public hearing, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that the people know where we're going. I mean, I don't want to go with them thinking we're going to fund this out of the surplus and they're not
Right,
going to
yeah,
tax
yeah,
it.
you gotta have an answer for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be able to go in and say, here's what we think is reasonable.
Yeah, so what you're explaining us tonight is what you're gonna explain at the town meeting.
I'm going to explain more once we, hopefully next month, or next week, set on a number that whether we're going to pass this as is, or we're not going to pass it as is, and what we recommend for cuts. Okay. And personally, I think we need to go a little bit of both. We'll have a slight tax increase, we'll have a slight budget decrease, and we will have a little bit coming out of fund balance.
Well, is that the way it is every year?
No,
No?
no. It's been a long time since we've decreased our budgets.
Oh, yeah, decrease, yeah, that's correct.
Yes, it's been a long time. You know, but also the budgets have been reasonable,
Yes.
okay? And I'm also very concerned with everything that's going on in Washington, that we may lose some of especially more so the Board of Education, is gonna lose some of their title grants, which means
We gotta make it up.
that's why I asked them, the information I had, Elaine sent you out was their, well, their employment, their people that they have employed, and it's broken down by grants and what's not grants. Okay? So you can kind of look and see if they lose a grant, you know, those people are either gonna lose their jobs, or we're gonna, depending on what they are and what they're doing, we may have to fund that
On top of the
on top of
increase.
whatever we get, right? And we may not know that for 6 months, or, you know, hopefully we get through this year and we'll have a better idea next year. But it's just an unknown.
So that 450 or whatever it was that we supposedly should get from the state,
That is in here under the second section down, which is intergovernmental revenues. It's the second line there.
Yep, cautionary?
Yep.
Okay. That's, okay.
Okay. So that's plugged in there.
Okay.
Okay.
So just kind of talking this out, we paid $200,000 for the firehouse out of the fund balance for this current year.
Correct.
Okay. And then in the year ending, the audit we just received, we increased the fund balance by 700,000.
662,000.
Okay.
Oh, 7.
Yes.
Yeah, so So, I mean, you know, if that trend continued, which I doubt it continues, you know, we would still be increasing the percent. I mean, the percentage of the undesignated fund balance divided by revenues.
Yeah.
So we could think about, I don't want to offset a mill rate increase that much, like you 200,000 somebody's and more. But, you know, maybe we can pay more towards the 5 monthly payments to the, you know, to the firehouse, you know, the 200,000 each year, and then finish that off a year over or something.
I can look into that. I'll be more than happy to look into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you're saying pay off what, pay off the firehouse a year early?
Well, no, we're taking out $200,000 from the fund balance each year for 5 years.
Correct.
So since our fund balance went up a lot this past year, is
Correct.
taking an extra 200 out this
Okay.
year, and
So will we pay up within 5 years?
yeah, be paid in 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years instead of 5, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
as
just a thought.
you're having this discussion, if I could just interject.
Yeah, please.
Bear in mind that your fund balance went up in part because of the investments made by the treasurer. So if you take out that $200,000, that's $200,000 that he's not going to be able to invest.
Make money on
That
it.
we're making money on.
Right now.
But he's been very aggressive on his investments, and that's why we're making significant money.
Right, and that's a fair point. That's a good point.
Before,
Yeah.
maybe we should get Chris involved in the discussion on how.
Yep.
Yeah, and the reason I raised it is just because, you know, the auditor presented that we're 31% of undesignated divided by revenues, and, you know, that's like, you know, roughly twice what, you know.
And quick question,
Yeah.
if I may.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
If the treasurer could remind me what the interest rate on our funds are at the moment, last time you knew?
Chris, interest rate on the funds?
I could check. I think we're still above 4% and higher than what we're paying on the debt.
That's good.
My recommendation would be to keep money in cash as long as it's favorable compared to what we're paying on the debt.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That rate.
And the Fed,
there's two-
at least for now, Federal Reserve has indicated that rates are not moving as of today. You know, who knows where that goes? I don't have a crystal ball, but for the meantime, if we're still collecting more interest on the money that we have sitting in cash compared to the amount that we're paying on the debt, I'm in favor of keeping that money in cash.
Yeah. I mean that's good investment advice. Yeah.
Oh, they also said they were going to think of lowering the rate twice this year. Say two.
Yeah.
Just decide not to do anything
If
today.
you'll remember, we had this discussion when we thought about paying
The firehouse,
the lease
the
on the
fire
fire
truck.
truck. And Chris rightfully so said if we take the money out of our fund balance to pay off the lease on the fire truck, we would be losing money rather than keeping it and making our payment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to those arguments.
I mean, we don't have to make a decision tonight.
Yeah.
We do need to come up with some kind of consensus for the next meeting, so I can present the information that I need to present at the public hearing, which
When's
is,
the public hearing after next week? 2 weeks out? One?
no, I think it's the 31st.
Of March?
Right, Monday.
March.
Oh, so it's the following week?
Right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, but next week's what, the 20,
Yeah.
Monday, 19, 20, 26, it'll be the following Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, the
Okay, it's
31st.
coming up.
is
So
public
right
hearing.
now, you're looking at the 28.4, 0.04?
I put these numbers out there. I am not recommending them. I am, you know, I just ran some numbers. Once you guys, I'll bring my computer so I can punch in the different, where you're looking at. I will run a number with the 400 out there. And then you can look and see where, you know, what's left. So
Yeah.
basically, with the if we went to the 2 to 400, would be 900,000 at the current rate. Would bring it down to 796 at the 25.84. So you're probably looking closer to like 27, like $1.5 million increase. okay? Which is, if you look to the right, 6.17%.
And Wayne, if you could
Yep.
send me that spreadsheet in an email.
Yeah, you didn't get it?
Emails, that would be, or sorry, with the inputs, that would be great.
Yeah, once I do those changes, I'll send it to everybody, have Elaine send it to everybody, but you should have gotten the original one. I asked her to email it out.
Yeah, I
She
got
sent
mine.
it,
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't see that come through, sorry about that.
yeah, no problem.
So I would suggest, for the public hearing is, for the second column from the right, is zero that $58,000 out.
Mhm.
So that lowers the mill rate a little bit.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, and so we know the exact total of the balance.
Yep,
And that'd be like 27.9 mils or something.
yep. And then we got, once we do that, we got to decide how we're gonna make up the rest.
Right.
One thing I would suggest is that if we do make any cuts, we make it across the board and uniform by percentage. Okay? Because it's not fair to take, 50,000 out of a $150,000 increase and, 300,000 out of a $10 million increase or a $10 million budget. So, but whatever we decide on, I think should be just a flat reduction by percentage.
I have a question about
Yes.
the board budget.
Yes.
And because we're going up so much, and that whole minimum requirement thing, if they increase it by that much, is that gonna be with us then going forward?
Anything we give them above what we gave them this year will be with us forever unless they have a significant drop in students, and we take advantage of that.
So-
Last time they dropped, we did not.
Is there anything we could do with that, the expenses there specifically that could keep that minimum amount down? Because it's a big increase.
All right. I had talked to Ian, and he told me that at the time they were talking an 18% increase. Okay, they took it down to 8.7. He was going to add in redoing the floors in the gym and the cafeteria. Okay. I asked him to keep those separate, and I'm pretty sure I sent you the quotes.
Yep.
There's 3 quotes.
Yeah, and that would be another item that we want to look at. That I would recommend we take out if we're going to do it. Okay.
Yeah. Aren't they trying to get a grant for that?
That's what I was gonna
Last
say,
week's
yeah.
They
meeting?
are, but I would rather approve the funds and get the grant, we just don't use them.
But under the general budget rather than the school budget?
Yes, yes.
Gotcha.
And we'll recommend that we set up a committee to oversee that, because we're paying for it and it's a town committee that's overdoing it. That's not considered an increase in the education budget. So we won't see that year after year after year. Okay.
As you go forward, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I can ask a
Yeah.
favor, since you're talking about a public hearing on the budget on the 31st of this month, I think you're gonna, the difference between the Board of Education and general government budget is at whatever meeting you want to do it, you can just tell the general government budget what line items you want us to cut.
Correct.
But, and we have to cut it. I will defend what I feel I can defend.
Yeah.
But on the Board of Education,
We
you
just
can
do
only
a
tell
number.
them, this is the
Yes.
number, and then they have to go back and figure out.
Correct.
So there's some time there, so the timeline's gonna be pretty narrow for everybody to get those
Yes,
numbers.
yes, yes.
Do we have to have the public hearing on the 31st? Just
It's already been advertised.
Okay, I was just asking because of
Yeah.
timing, if
All right, I think, I'll check with Elaine,
yeah.
you know.
Well, was there a problem with making a decision tonight? Not enough time?
No, we
This
can't.
one-
I've given you information here. I figured you'd want more information on, based on that, where the mill rate would stand.
Right,
So you
but now
know
that
it's-
we've had it for
Exactly.
a while now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I was thinking
I'm
that,
just trying to buy them another week. like
yeah, I mean, you could,
Randy said.
you could. I just won't have exact numbers,
Yeah.
to give you. But yeah, I mean, I can hold a special meeting Monday if you want.
No,
You know.
Wednesday's fine with me,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Tom's fair in saying what he's saying,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we gotta get the budgets to the town clerk's office, like, what, 5 days ahead of time or
Yeah.
something? So that would be like
Yeah.
Wednesday or Tuesday next week.
I think we're good on Wednesday.
On Wednesday, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion and take action tonight, that's fine, but I think you guys need more information as far as, I'll lay it out with the 400. I'll lay, that way you'll know exactly what the mill rate is to balance at. And then I will give you, does everybody think $1.5 million is an acceptable increase?
I mean, you
I-
mentioned.
I'm only asking so I can give you
Yeah.
a table showing that.
Yeah, I know.
That's all.
I just
So,
thought it was
so
a question.
I'm curious what this 3.1% state cap
Yes.
isn't very much. That's like less than 0.4 of the mill.
Yes.
And so if we go up 1.5,
And that camp also does not include, and it's not the mill rate, it's the budget number. Okay. That also cap does not include like special ed. There are a few things, the bond debt, that type of stuff is not included in that cap. Okay. And these numbers also include the full amount. I don't think I reduced it by it. No, I did not. So it includes the full grant amount.
And what was the reason for the increase so large last year, the firehouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Right, yeah. that's what I
The
kinda
bonding came in on the firehouse.
So basically, a lot of people saw a big hit last year to the firehouse.
Yeah.
This year, they're gonna see a big hit because of education. The selectmen's budget's perfect.
Correct.
Okay, got no questions about that. The
Correct.
education budget, when you got towns coming in at 2%, 3%, other towns coming in at 6%, and we're at 8.87 or 8.77?
But
That's a heck of a hit. Well, we got the
Well,
same average kids.
But to be fair, you can't look at a single.
I
year.
understand that, but
You
you
know.
can explain it that way,
Yeah.
Wayne, and I can understand
Yeah.
it that way, and so can everybody else that's
Yeah.
sitting here tonight. But when you get the person out in the public,
Yeah.
say, what was the hit last? We didn't even know people were building the firehouse,
Right.
okay?
yeah.
And they're gonna need all
The year
$15 million.
before
Yeah.
was the revaluation.
Yes.
It didn't have anything to do with the
Yeah.
budget.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not just, you're 100% right, but if we're gonna present, that, then we should also present a 3 to 4 year history of that town.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because if they were 4%, 4%, and we were 2, and now we're 8, you can't just take 1 year out of it.
No, I understand that, but I think a lot of people today are looking at right now.
Yes, yes,
Look where we were last year, look where we are now, look where we could probably be next year with everything going on. Not only at the state capitol, but the whole country.
you're 100%
Okay.
right. You're 100% right.
And with the cost of everything else going up right now or not moving, it's not gonna sit well.
No, no, it's not.
And I know that, that's
Yeah.
part of the job.
Yeah.
Or
So let me run the numbers. I will get them out to you by the close of the Friday. I'll send them to Elaine.
Thing is, how can you run the numbers when you don't know what the bottom number is gonna be? If this board decides to say, cut 2%, 5%, 10, I don't care, cut 10%, make it an easy number. Now we got a whole different number to play with.
Yes, but if you think like $1.5 million is reasonable, then I will run that, and you'll know what that number is. You'll know what's left, if that is what we're gonna go for a mill rate increase, what we need to cut.
Yeah.
And then you can look and see, is that a reasonable cut? Do you think they can live with that cut? Okay?
Well, thing is, you come next week with this, I think we're on a time
And I'm
frame
not-
here, a week.
yeah.
No, I'm just saying, we have this meeting next week, you come with the numbers, this board decides to pick a number.
Yep,
Now we gotta figure out how to explain it to the
correct,
public hearing,
correct,
but we gotta have a number to work with.
correct. Yeah. So, I mean,
I don't know that you're under a hard
Deadline,
a hard timeline for that March 31st public hearing.
no, but,
There's nothing said, and I don't think we've published anything, other, I think it may be on your on the website, but
Yeah, I mean, we're technically not, we can just open it up, you know, for comments, but.
Open wide for comments.
The public hearing?
That's what I was
You know,
asking.
here's the budget.
I remember in the past, didn't we always have town meetings where we got input on the original budget?
Well, we always have a public hearing before the annual town meeting.
Correct, but at that time, wasn't that the time that we presented the budget as it was? And then if the town came back and said, cut,
Then you would.
then we would cut it.
Right.
What we're doing is we're cutting and taking it to them. They could all sit there and say, no, do it. We'll pay the whole thing. I don't think it's gonna happen, Wayne,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying it with the past.
the problem is that you get minimal people at the public hearing.
That's exactly right. That's the issue in every small town, not just Lisbon.
And I think it's important that if we are seriously cutting, or thinking about cutting, that we make that demonstration so that people know. If they don't come out,
Shame on them.
yeah, if they don't come out, shame on them, but at least we've told them that
When
we're
is that meeting
considering.
supposed to be? Isn't it May?
The town
The
meeting?
town meeting?
The first Monday in May.
I'm like, I remember.
Hey, so for the spreadsheet you're gonna work on,
Yeah.
can you make a column for just a 1 mil increase?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions for Tom.
Yeah.
I know this isn't gonna sit pretty, but questions I have. So I know the Hoydolia property, that's the Bishop House, correct?
Hoydolia property?
Yes. Okay, so we're paying, $62,000 a year with interest and the annual payment on that. So a question I have is there's 3 line items: Bishop Meeting House Museum, $6,200; Lisbon Historical Society, $6,700; Newitt Meeting House, $9,400. That's a total of $22,300. All that money is allocated to the Historical Society, correct, for those buildings? Okay. Next question I have is, what capital projects do we have, what capital projects do you have to spend the $30,000 on?
Capital project. Oh, I don't have, well, we still haven't addressed, the salt shed, and the salt shed's in there. The state is gonna eventually ding us. They went out and inspected, they did a surprise inspection last week, and the inspector took pictures, and he said, still no salt shed.
You've been paying $15,000 for a few years, right, for the salt shed, but you have $30,000 just for capital projects.
Yeah. If we had one big capital project, it's gonna eat that money. What we're trying to do is, I mean, don't fund that at all. I don't care. That's not in the budget. That's not part of the budget.
The capital projects is not part of the budget?
No.
Okay.
Where does that come from?
Well, it's designated. It's one of those things that he talked about. And it's in the capital non-recurring designated.
Right.
Designated.
10,000 sheet, is that the one you're looking at?
He's looking in the CNR designated.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah, I mean,
that's not part of the.
if you don't wanna put any money in this year, if you don't wanna put that $110,000 in there this year, that's fine, but it's not gonna change the bottom line of the general government budget because it's
Right.
not part
That
of
comes
the-
out of the fund
yeah.
balance.
It's only a tool to set money aside for designated projects that we may have in the future.
Okay, and just give some more, the CNR is
Capital
a
non-
separate vote at the town meeting, the
Yeah.
regular budget.
Right, yep.
Yeah, the salt shed's been in there for a while.
Salt
So-
shed's been in there for a while.
20 years at least, not longer than that.
I don't know how much we have there, but it's been a while.
So I'm gonna look at this as my personal budget at my house. I'm gonna look at the town budget, school budget the same way. We can scream and holler that we have no choice, we have to increase the mill, we have to pay for this, we have to pay for that. But, I mean, I'm looking at the Historical Society, it's $22,300, we could cut some fat out for that. I mean, there might not be stuff that somebody wants to do this year. I mean, I drive by the Bishop House all the time, and it looks like a crap hole sitting there still. It doesn't seem like our investment is getting us very far.
You mean the tavern?
Oh, the tavern, that's right, no,
Well,
the tavern. But anyways, I mean, any of us at our job, I mean, even as you, Mr. Selectman, at your annual salary, if you can't just go to the town and say, hey, I want another $30,000 because I want this, this, and this, or whatever, you have to budget I mean, we have to cut fat.
I
You know, personal expenses, whatever, I mean, this,
You-
if it's shopping for insurance, and I'm sorry, there's gotta be a way to shop for insurance to get better rates, $69,000 increase on health insurance is.
Well, understand that we piggyback with the school. If we were to just pay for health insurance for the few employees that we have down here, you'd be paying a lot more.
So work with the school to look for a better insurance policy that's a
I
better
believe
plan.
they do.
Yeah, they do.
I believe they do.
They shop for
I think they said that.
They do.
They do.
And I've heard just on the, consumer level that insurance has gone up a lot because of all the
Insurance is
natural
just
disasters
stupid.
and stuff.
I know,
I
my
mean,
home insurance
they
almost
shoot the
doubled, and I
CEOs
went
with
shopping,
insurance
found one that
companies.
was only $200.
Well, state of Connecticut, I think it went up 12.8% this year,
Yeah.
from last year, if you were buying on the market.
Yeah.
And-
Now, being with the town, the school,
Yeah, and
probably you're over 50 people, you get a rate right there, so that was a good move joining with them.
just in defense of the Historical Society, you said a combined number of what, 20-some thousand dollars?
$22,300.
20,000. Did you realize that they produce half of their revenue to offset that by collecting cans and bottles and separating them and then bringing them to a redemption center?
I understand that, but still, I mean,
And the town residents voted for us to buy that historical property, and the meeting house.
I understand, but there might be projects that we might have to put off, a little bit of money, I mean,
Well, that
like you have 100, you went up 10,000 on town maintenance on a vehicle. I mean, why do we need the extra 10,000?
What line item is talking about?
Uh, 60143, town equipment and trucks. That increased by 10,000.
Oh, that's Public Works.
Yeah.
What you guys saying, what
Can you
specifically?
imagine, that's a bargain. We have trucks that are on the road every single day, 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, 24 hours a day doing snow plowing.
But that's not wages, that's
No,
equipment
that's
and
right.
trucks, so.
That's the maintenance and everything to go along with that. And quite frankly, I believe you're gonna be dealing with a, town equipment and truck. You're gonna be dealing with a line item transfer in the amount of $30,000. Part of that cost is you realize that line item funds the fuel for the entire fleet, fire department, senior center, public works. That line item funds the fuel for all of those vehicles. And as you've seen and you've been informed, the call volume for the fire department is going through the roof. Well, that's fuel that's being expended every single day. So that, yeah, it's expensive. And quite frankly, and you'll see in the narrative of the request, we have an aging fleet. Our trucks are breaking down. We haven't bought a public works truck in a long time.
It all has to be certified mechanics.
Yeah. So yeah, it's expensive, I'm sorry. But
So does the town have their own ASE certified mechanic?
No.
So you guys take it to a garage somewhere?
Yes. I'll be more than glad if you wanna pay me, you wanna add $70,000 or $80,000 on public works for employees for an ASE mechanic.
Where did you say we're gonna have to move 30,000 from?
Well, you got a line item transfer, that something we're gonna deal with later on is a line item transfer for town equipment and trucks, the line item that Phil's talking about.
For this year, right now we're in. It has to be.
Yeah, that's it right now.
Up from the wall.
I mean, we have a payloader that was that's a 1978 payloader that was here when I got here 28 years ago, and we're still maintaining it, and we're keeping it operable. There's gonna come a point where that's gotta go. So please understand that when I speak passionately about the fact that we're pretty frugal and we try to take care of our equipment, we've got an aging fleet, so we're gonna have to spend some money.
The blue tractor,
Huh?
the little blue tractor.
Yeah. Yeah, we bought our payloader used from Concord.
Just a quick question about the insurance that we have on all of our properties and vehicles. Given that insurance has ballooned in price for God only knows what reason, maybe it's time that we take a look at what the deductibles are on some of those policies. By raising the deductible, we could potentially reduce the premiums. And if we do that across our fleet of public works vehicles, fire trucks, even some of the buildings that we have, we can kind of capitalize on the money that we have idle. And in the event that, something happens, I guess it's worse for us, but in the short term, if we're able to save even 10%, 20% on those premiums by raising the deductibles, because we do have the cash in the event that something happens, that might be a source of cuts.
Not a bad idea, Jonathan. I would recommend that if we look into that and we find it significant savings, that we say if we go from a 5,000 deductible to a 50,000, that we take the difference and put it into a restricted fund to cover that in the event of a,
I agree with that. And then,
Yeah.
At the same time, we can still park those restricted funds.
Right, exactly. They're still available to earn interest and everything else.
Some money on that. So
Exactly.
I think we should look into that, because you can save. I know on my auto policy, my family, we looked at all the deductibles and we moved it from 500 to 1,000 on our car, and you're able to save like 30%. So I'm not saying savings will be 30% for the town, because we have a lot more assets, but I think, even if we could trim 5%, 10% and bring those premiums down, that could save the town a lot of money.
Would this include like buildings too?
Yeah,
So
we're going to do
would-
what you do across the
would-
board.
With the school board also, could we get them to look into, or is that part of the town on the buildings?
Is the insurance on the school buildings on their side or ours?
It's for the Board of Education.
Okay.
So maybe they should look in that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will
they
ask
should,
Ian to look into it.
And shop it around too.
It's not a bad
Shop it
idea. It's
around
worth at
with
least
different
looking at.
Yeah, the only question I would have is I'm pretty much a layman. If we shop around for different insurance companies, how do I know somebody's not just selling me a bill of goods? Do I hire somebody who's going to review all of the insurance proposals and tell me that this is good, this is bad? I don't know.
That's why you get an insurance broker.
Well, yeah, and I would just start with our existing company
Yeah.
and see if we raise our deductible, what does that premium go
Oh, no,
down?
that's fine. But
Yeah.
I think it,
Well, there's brokers out there that they shop for you. They will
Right.
And
they
take
will
a-
look around.
Yeah,
I mean,
no
that's
take
what I
a
got.
percent.
not for free.
You can go the
No.
brokerage route. You can also shop it around,
Yeah,
I
I would at
if
least
we were to
start
really shop
Yeah.
with
and get
our
aggressive with it.
with our
Most
existing,
insurance contracts
see where it
are
comes.
written,
see what they suggest.
pretty much the same. There's nuances, but the Department of Insurance at the state regulates a lot of that stuff. So, the bill of goods, it states exactly what the insurance term is, the peril, the damage, right? So it states very specifically what is covered, what is not covered, and those are the clauses that we should really hone in on. If there's a drop off in coverage for, let's say, roof damage, and the premium's 30% cheaper, well, there's your answer, right? But if it's the same coverage, covers the same peril, and it's cheaper, with everything else being the same,
Right.
the way the policy's set up,
Right.
they have a contractual obligation to pay out in the event that something happens.
Yeah, I don't have a problem checking with our insurance company about
Yeah.
helping the deductibles, but I can't promise that I can go out and insurance shop.
No, we don't have time for
within this
that.
budget process.
We don't have time for that. But if we can check with the existing carrier
Sure.
and get maybe pricing on a couple of different, maybe 50,000 and 100,000, something like that, deductible.
But it might be good to start talking to
Well-
brokers about next year's budget to shop.
Yes, but you also have to remember that if we do that, all the minor things that happen, like if a truck has an accident and a $40,000 claim, we got a $50,000 deductible, we're eating all of that instead of 5,000. And I don't know what the current deductible is, but I know like in Lisbon or Legic, we had a 5,000 deductible. So,
Yeah, I mean, it might not have
Yeah.
quite that high.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if we're saving a good amount of money, we're putting that into an account where we're drawing interest, it could be easy to cover a
yes,
$4,000.
but if you get 3 or 4 of them,
How many claims, and I know you can't predict
Yeah.
weather or
No.
accidents, but
No.
just on average, how many claims a year do we actually have in the town?
I've only got one pending right now, and that's the vehicle that went into the Burnham Tavern.
But that wasn't.
That wasn't a town
us.
vehicle though.
No, it wasn't a town vehicle.
So it's not our insurance going,
Well,
not the town insurance, it's the auto.
it
Well,
could be
yeah,
if they're
yeah.
not insured or
That-
underinsured.
The driver of that vehicle is deceased, and he's also somebody that we are in court with for cleaning up his property on North Burnham Highway. And he pretty
That's the
much.
same individual?
Yeah, he's pretty much judgment proof.
That's the
So,
place.
at the very most, if we can get, and I believe we get, our deductible is $10,000. If we can subrogate with his insurance company on the vehicle for the $10,000 deductible, with our insurance company's still gonna have to pay the $150,000.
We can put a lien against this property if he ever sells it, right? I mean, what do you?
I mean, we've already got a lien against this property.
Oh, you already did?
And we've already got a judgment in court for him not cleaning it up. And we've already got.
On top of that.
A judgment for attorney's fees, but, if he's deceased and has no money,
We're out of luck.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I don't wanna do is I don't wanna get into, a conversation with his estate that, okay, well then, we won't pay anything, the town can just take the property. I don't think it would be in the best interest of the town for us to take that property, pay for the cleanup, and then try to market.
That was $150,000 damage over there, right?
Yes.
How much are we currently paying for all our property and casualty premiums?
I don't have that number.
Because the main reason I asked that, let's say it was, I don't know, for the school, for all the town buildings, for all the town vehicles, say it was, I don't know, 100 grand, just to keep math simple. We saved 10% by increasing our deductibles, and we go 3 or 4 years without claims with that heightened deductible, we made our money back.
Yeah, I'll definitely get this,
Yeah, we'll get-
savings for you on the,
We'll get some numbers. We'll hopefully have them. As soon as you get them, I'll pass them out to the board.
Thank you.
Okay. I will run a bunch of different mill rates, let you know what the balance is on them. He asked for 1.5. I'll do 2. I'll give you multiple choices, mainly so you can see what the bottom line is.
Yeah.
So if we decide that whatever mill rate is acceptable, we know what we have to cut out of the budget to balance it. Okay.
So is your spreadsheet gonna be, if we, I'm just gonna pick numbers here.
Yep.
If we ask for a 10% cut across the board for both.
I can
And
do that if you want.
No, and that brings the number down. What's the board ed? Oh, let's say board ed's $1 million, close enough.
Yep.
You tell them to cut 10%. I'm just picking a number, like I said, easy numbers. They gotta cut 100 grand. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
And then that's where you would set a mill rate and what we would take out of the surplus for that 10% cut.
Yes.
Then you
I
can do
can
it
do
for
that.
5% cut, whatever the board
Okay.
decides to cut. This way here, you know what you're asking them for a cut, whether it's 5, 10, or no cut at all.
Okay. I'll run various at 5% cut increments and let you know what they are and what the mill rate would be. It's easy enough to do.
And you're gonna go across the board, you said.
That is my suggestion. I mean, you know, it's a much smaller cut on the town side. 10% is what, $1,000? Or $10,000? $10,000?
No,
Uh,
it's 16. Aren't you 160,000?
No,
Increase?
106.
Well, he's 106.
Oh, it's 106, I'm sorry, okay,
It's
106.
106,
Yeah.
but there's also 36,000 that was taken out of that budget
That's right.
because it's being, we took the revenue from the rec department out and put it in a separate fund, so they pay for that expense. So we took the expense and the revenue out of the budget.
Yeah.
So technically, it is 150,000 more, 140
Okay.
something thousand more. Okay. So yeah, you could, either way, but you're talking 100 to 10 to $15,000. On 10% on the Board of Ed would be 100,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, any other questions on that? All right, moving on to new business. We already discussed the gymnasium floor proposals. I think we need to settle on the mill rate and what we're going to do first. And then we can make a decision if we want to move forward with that and make it part of the, because either way, I feel like it's going to be over the amount that we'll have to go to public hearing. They have got, I did send them the contacts for the people I use for the floors. It did come down dramatically. You know, I think they were 90 or 100,000. I think they're down around 40. You know, somewhere in there. I did send you information out. I don't recall exactly, but I think each of them were around 20. There was an additional charge on the gym floor of, like, I forget what it was, 5,000 or 6,000 to put new inserts for the volleyball nets and stuff into the floor. So that was significant savings. Okay, anybody other questions on that? Tom, you're up. Again.
I'm gonna get them the
Huh?
selectmen's paper.
Which-
What are we supposed to,
Which-
usually we get the selectmen's paperwork.
Hang on, let me see what's in here.
I got it. Yeah, I thought you got it.
No, we just have the-
I just,
there's a lot of paperwork this week. The audits and everything, but I haven't seen
right
it.
here, to redistribute.
Oh.
There we go.
Don't take all this sticky around.
Should have two
Just
pages.
one, two?
Two pages.
Back and-
You got
front
one
and
of
back?
these.
Yeah, front and back.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah, the original one only has two pages. So one page for everything else.
All right, which one are we doing first?
There's more than one though.
There's
Yeah.
just one, right?
Right, yep. Well, this one wasn't together, so
Okay.
there's two. Okay.
There's three.
There's three? Yes, there is three. All right.
These three are for you.
Thank you.
Just want one. You can have it for one more.
I
I didn't put them down on anything, and that was what he said.
Yeah, thank
You need another one, Randy?
you. No, it's okay.
All right.
All right, which one do you want?
We'll start with the Lion, additional appropriation of 1,500, 55351.
That's the building and building and
Mileage expense due
Yes.
to,
Yes, that's, he's requesting an additional appropriation to that line item, based on the fact that, there's an increase in the mileage reimbursement and the increased number of inspections. And the state is requiring building and zoning officers to now do regular training classes. So he's traveling more, they don't do them necessarily close to us all the time. So he's traveling a lot more, and he also has to do a mandatory out-of-state training once each year. He has to travel to some part of Massachusetts where he has to do the training. So he's asking for that additional appropriation to get him through the rest of the year for the mileage. And I should put a caveat on that. While he was out on workers' comp, he had to go to therapy for his injury. And if his insurance, if the workers' comp insurance doesn't pay for that, we will be on the hook to pay for that mileage.
why wouldn't workers' comp pay for it?
I don't know, but if they don't, we would.
They should.
They should be paying.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Is that included in this amount?
No,
Okay,
no, we kept it bare bones.
okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve an additional additional appropriation to the amount of $1,500 to account 55351.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Where's the 1,500 coming from?
Fund
Additional
balance.
Appropriation out of the general fund.
Yeah,
The general fund?
yeah.
So
And we'll either, at the end of the year, will either be a reduction from the fund balance if we go into negative, or a reduction in any overage we would have.
So I'm looking at this year's budget, the 2,500, and on the new budget you proposed is also still 2,500. So that's gonna be a shortfall as well, correct?
Could be. I try not to go up where I try to keep it as low as we can.
A lot will depend on how many building permits, how many inspections he has to do. So if there's less activity, which means we'll have less of an increase in the grand list.
Is 70 cents a mile like average of what people have?
Whatever the federal government requires,
Okay.
or the IRS, excuse me. Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next one will be line item transfer for
Streets and highways?
30,000, line item number 60143, town equipment and trucks.
Right, this is a line item transfer request, the amount of $30,000 for line item 60143, town equipment and trucks, with $20,000 from line item 60132, road repair and maintenance, and $10,000 from line item 60135, road repair.
And those have surpluses right now?
I'm sorry?
And those have money still left in them right now?
Yes, we haven't expended, we haven't started the spring road work, so what our plan is to take the money out of, not deplete those two line items, but take the money out of that, and if we have to supplement those two line items to do road work, we'll take it out of town aid road, because we have a surplus.
Take it out of what?
Town aid road, TAR.
I'll take a motion to that effect.
So moved. Second.
Questions, considerations? Hearing none, those in favor? Yep, go ahead.
And what are the fund, what do we need the additional 30,000 for, Tom? For
That's the one that we talked about, Phil. That's it's to ensure the ability to purchase diesel fuel and gas through the remainder of the fiscal year and to repair to make sure that we have funds to repair our fleet, which is aging. But as I said to you, that we pay for the fuel and gas, diesel and gas for the entire fleet, and that's the fire department, the ambulance, senior center, and public works.
So how much do we have remaining in that 6143? Out of that 95,000, how much money is actually remaining in there?
With the monthly report.
What's line item?
60143.
I have a P&L. $61.43, equipment down trucks. This says 95,000, but it says July 24 to February 2025 is 102,285.81. 100,000 budget, it says we're over 2,285.81.
What's the extreme
Am I reading that
line?
right?
Extreme right hand line, what does it say?
So the right hand line?
Yeah.
102.3%.
It's already overspent.
Right.
Correct.
Right. So there's nothing left.
Nothing.
Right.
I got you. That's all I was wondering.
Yeah.
So you wanted to go into that? Okay, I
Yes.
understand that now.
Yes.
Okay, and so it's coming from 60132.
60132 or 60135.
Then that one is good.
So you said, so 60, and I just want to make sure I'm clear. You said you haven't started spring road maintenance. 60132 only has 25.9% left in it. And the other one has 75%.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. And the last one.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is from the Registrar of Voters. They're asking for an additional appropriation to line item 52550, supplies and expenses in the amount of $10,500. They cite that the additional funding is needed due to early voting mandate and will be used for the referendum, required training, ballots and supplies, mailing for the new voting location at the meeting house, and the yearly mandated canvass.
Can we bill the Secretary of State?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we send her a bill for this?
Yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, I tried. No.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Frank? Comments?
Where's it coming from again?
An additional appropriation.
General fund.
Okay, all right, I'm looking for one item.
So is there any grant money that the state's offered for all this stupid early voting crap?
The state offered a one-time payment when this first started, I think, of $10,000.
And that's across the board to every town.
Yeah, right.
You know how big you were.
So just go lucky.
More than a
If you
few
figure out how
times
many
we're
people
lucky
took
to be
advantage of
small.
$1,000 a person.
And it's a total, how much? So 7,100 and 1,100?
10,500.
Is this gonna be a yearly thing, Tom, or is this just because
I don't.
Shortfall.
They cut the early voting this year, right? It's not 2 weeks. I thought that I
Well,
heard that.
they're talking about
there's
it.
still the
that's
schooling
being
involved, the
decided.
referendum
Okay.
involved,
They haven't
the
decided.
primaries involved.
Yeah.
So 1 year might be one short and 1 year might be one more.
So-
I mean, 1,100 of this is the notification of the new voting location, which will help. That won't be there in the future.
Yeah.
So this is, and I know I'm saying cut the fat on the new budget, but this is concerning that they're needing an additional 10,500. And on the new budget, you're wanting to deduct 12,700 from 52,550.
I'm at, that's their numbers. they put together that's what they think they are gonna need to provide the voting services to the residents. And I have little knowledge and don't profess to know a lot about the registrar's duties and everything, but they put those budget numbers together. And that negative number, that wasn't a cut that the Board of Selectmen made. We sent their numbers through with what they requested.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing, you're opposed? Okay. One opposed. Motion carries, one negative. Okay, that finishes it up. I'll entertain any other business that'll come before the board. Anybody like to bring up? Hearing none. Public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to comment? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. I didn't hear anybody
We're all just
jump on that.